Guys, Kuzo here, back with another video, and in this video today we're going to be doing another splash page illustration, and this one's going to be from Fire Force, and the characters I'm going to be drawing are Shinra and Tamaki. Just like my most recent illustration I did of Tanjiro from Kimetsu no Yaiba and how I inked that one with the G pen, I'm also going to be inking this one with the G pen in this video as well. So with Fire Force, I've watched about 3 episodes so far, and I believe at the time of recording this video there are 4 episodes out, so I just haven't watched the new episode quite yet. So far I've been enjoying the anime, and through the episodes that I've watched so far, I've just been kind of waiting for the main plot to really kick in. With these first few episodes, it's been a lot of kind of introduction to the world and the characters and stuff like that, and within episode 3 it started getting into the main plot more, so I'm definitely looking forward to the episodes after this, with episode 4 that I need to watch. But yeah, other than the story and stuff, the concept of the infernals are really cool and the animation is beautiful. But let's talk a little bit about the illustration now. So I got Shinra down on the right hand side, really big and whatnot, and then I got Tamaki up here on the left hand side being a little bit smaller, kind of in the background. Well, more so like foreground, but when I was drawing Tamaki, I actually wasn't drawing Tamaki at first. I was drawing a different character, and I actually did a Google search and I saw a different character that I liked the design more of, so I wanted to add her in, and I wasn't originally going to add her in because she wasn't in the anime yet. It was when we were in episode 2 of the anime and she had not shown up yet. But all of a sudden when I watched episode 3, I was like, oh, that's the character I wanted to draw. So I ended up changing her to Tamaki instead of this other character. I forgot her name. She was in the main squad. But when I saw her on the cover of the manga volume when I was doing the search to have the reference for like the uniforms and stuff, yeah, I really did like her design and the fire tail and kind of like the fire ears. Thought it would be a character that would be really fun to draw. Yeah, so with this illustration, the very first concept I had for it and kind of like the composition and stuff, it wasn't exactly how it is now. It was definitely a little bit different in the thumbnailing stage. I was kind of looking for a composition going straight upward, similar to my Kimetsu no Yaiba, the very first Kimetsu no Yaiba splash page I did on here with Nezuko and Tanjiro. But I decided to try out something a little bit different because I didn't want to use quite the same composition as I did there, and I don't think it would have been bad if I did. It's just I wanted to try out something a little bit different than that one. So I ended up trying to put Shinra down here in this bottom right, having him be big and kind of a little bit the main focus, and then put Tamaki up to the left and having Shinra facing to the left and then Tamaki facing to the right. So it kind of has a center focus, but it has a somewhat of a zigzag composition where it makes you follow his big hand all the way down to his face, and then his arm is going over to Tamaki, which it leads you up through her body and stuff like that. The way I phrased that sounded kind of strange. But anyways, so I tried to balance out the composition a little bit more with these little fire guys up to the right, because that area would have been a little barren, kind of just nothingness. And I could just put a bunch of fire over there, but I wanted something to at least be able to focus on once you kind of go through the zigzag looking at this illustration, if you were to start at a certain part, but it doesn't mean everyone will, when they look at an image, will start at the same section. It's just kind of an idea that if someone did look at the hand first, it would lead you through. Or if you looked at Shinra's face, it would kind of lead you up to look at Tamaki. And if you were eventually to go and look at the hand at some point, maybe it would lead you the way I was talking about. But these are a lot of things that I questioned when I was learning composition and stuff like that, because I would hear people talk about basically the big focal point that most people will look at and have it lead you through the page the way they built the composition. And I always thought to myself, well, what if someone didn't look at that spot at first, you know? So it's good to ask questions when you're trying to learn something, or ask yourself questions in order to try to figure it out, because I was really just overthinking things, and that's a big part of my personality is I overthink things a lot. But in that sort of situation where you say, well, what if the person doesn't look at that specific spot when they first look at the illustration? Well, when someone's looking at an illustration and they look at it for a while, they'll eventually look at those spots, and they'll probably have the leading of the composition at some point the way that the artist intended it. But in any case, I've actually started inking now, so let's just talk a little bit about that, I guess. So I'm using the G pen like I did last time, and for those of you who are new to the video and don't actually know what a G pen is, it's just really a Japanese style kind of dip ink pen that most manga artists, traditional manga artists, use to ink their manga pages with. The last video with Tanjiro that I used this pen in, that was the first time I used this G pen in a very, very long time. And like I mentioned in that video, the ink that I had in the small bottle, I have a big bottle of ink and a small bottle. The little bottle of ink was, you know, kind of dried out, and I didn't really realize that at first, so it was very hard inking, and it was breaking apart when I was drawing. That sounds weird the way I put it, breaking apart. Basically the lines were breaking because the ink wasn't coming out fast enough. But so this whole illustration was done with the slightly newer ink from my big bottle, and everything went very smoothly with this illustration. There was no breaking of the line or anything like that. So inking this illustration definitely felt like a more fluent process than the other one, because the other one I was still kind of playing around with the ink and stuff and trying to figure out what was going wrong. So this one was kind of just jump into it and start inking and trying to have some fun with it. And when I first used the G pen in my last video, I was worried that you'd see my hand going off to the side dipping the ink too often. But it seems like I dip the ink so often that it doesn't even look like my hand is going off the page. Like, it looks like there's ink on it the whole time, but I actually dip the pen a bunch. And if you watch really closely, you can see where my hand kind of like swooshes off and comes back, swooshes off and comes back, but it's not very noticeable. But yeah, like I said, you do have to dip this pen a lot when you're inking. The only other pen that I used to ink this illustration was a Pentel brush pen. That was used to fill in all the blacks and stuff. For those of you who get nervous before inking, I still get nervous before inking too, especially when it's traditionally. But, you know, I don't get as nervous as I used to, especially if I ink more than one illustration in one day, or I'm doing a lot of inking. It's just a lot of experience, and that goes for anything, really. You just need a lot of experience to feel very comfortable with what you're doing, so you're not as afraid and make a mistake, because honestly, I feel like being afraid and being more stiff ends up causing more mistakes when you're inking, because you're trying to be so careful that you end up having some sort of twitch or something, and you're like, oh man, and you mess up. And throughout a lot of these ink illustrations that I've been doing recently on my channel, there's been quite a few times that I messed up on the eye a little bit with some of the smaller characters, and I was really upset about it, but I ended up doing a quick fix that made it not look as bad, and I didn't feel as bad about it in the very end. This illustration, it was definitely tedious and kind of stressful at the bottom part, trying to figure out how I was going to do this fire, because I needed to do the fire first before inking the sleeves, because if I inked the sleeves first, there's a big chance that I would have inked into a spot that I wanted to ink the fire into, because when I actually sketched out the fire, I didn't sketch out the fire to be exact. I knew I was going to have some spontaneousness to my inking when I was putting in the flames. I don't even know if spontaneousness is a word, is it? But yeah, with so many flames going over the character in this illustration, it was definitely a lot of jumping around and trying to do things just one step at a time, so I didn't have too many mess ups. So now I'm inking her face, and these small faces always give me anxiety when I go to ink them, and it's just, the lines are so small, you can always make a mistake so easily just with one little twitch of your hand. But you know, just with doing it more often, you get better at it. And honestly, I just need to ink more, because I've been doing a whole lot of sketches, and with my manga coming up, I'm definitely going to be inking a whole lot more. And I'm kind of glad I've been doing these illustrations and inking these illustrations, because they're kind of getting me warmed up for inking these pages in my manga. Now we're finally getting to the hat, and one weird little thing about the lettering where it says Fire Force Tokyo, I was looking at some images on Google, and it looks like in the manga at some point it said Fire Soldier Tokyo, so that was a bit confusing, but I just went with the Fire Force Tokyo one because that's what was in the anime promo, and I don't know if they just changed that for the anime or if it got changed in the manga or not, but I don't know. I just went with the Fire Force one. Alright, so we're almost done with this hat now, and I knew at this stage I left the hat till the end because I know like inking lettering is kind of hard for me. So when I finished inking that hat, I knew I was almost done. I was on the last stretch of the line work before doing the blackouts. So at this point I'm just kind of putting in the stray fire that I haven't inked yet, doing these little guys up at the top, and there's some more fire off to the left that I'm going to be inking. So this is just a lot of like little line work details that I need to make sure I get done, because once I erase the pencils I can always go in and add more detail, which is typically what I do, and I just erased all the line work there. No, it wasn't that fast. I just showed a little bit of it and then cut out the rest because I think it's kind of boring to watch me sit there and erase a whole page, so I skipped over that part. All the pencil work is erased, and now we're putting in more pencil and we're just blocking in where we want all the blackouts and stuff, and I won't necessarily shade in a whole blackout spot. I'll kind of just block it in and try to remember where I want to put in that blacks. And you can kind of see where I'm leaving some empty spots, because I know that those spots are going to be pure black, and I know which spots are going to be kind of highlighted, because there's not really a point in actually shading in those dark spots with the pencil. With that, we are completely done with the pencil stage, and we are now completely moving on to the blackout stage. And I'm just kind of blocking in the, the shines for the hair, because they're very sharp and meticulous, so I need to make sure I block those in with the G pen first before I end up going in with this big brush pen. I'm not that skilled with a brush pen to where I can just go in there and start inking it with just that. I'm no Kim Jong-gi. But this was a very happy moment for me, because once you get to blackouts, it's always a really fun time just kind of filling them in and putting in these shines, and then just filling in the pure black parts, because you kind of see the whole image come together. Right now it's just kind of a skeleton, a structure, and once you get that in, it starts really feeling full and finished. And one thing I didn't realize during inking it, but now looking at the recording, was how much I actually use this G pen with these blackouts, because there are so many small spots that I realized it would kind of just be counterproductive to use the brush pen in certain spots. Like with this glove, there are just such small areas that I was inking, because so much light is hitting them that the blackouts are just these small areas. I just use the G pen to kind of fill them in, and I do that quite a bit. But like I mentioned with the microns, I didn't like doing that as much, because I knew microns, have a limited amount of ink within them, and it's just like if you use that for blackouts, the microns for blackouts, that's a little less ink that you might have to be able to ink another illustration. So I always try to avoid that with the microns, but the G pen being a dip ink pen, I can definitely use a lot more ink, because I know I have a whole lot more ink than just a little cartridge inside of a pen. And I guess I actually forgot to mention what pencil I used in here, even though a lot of you guys probably already know what pencil I use, but there might be some new people here that don't. But I just use a 0.7 Bic mechanical pencil, one of the disposable kinds. They're typically just within an office supplies store, and they're in a lot of grocery stores as well, and they're kind of like office supplies section. They're pretty much just a standard pencil, and I typically like using just really standard things to, produce my work, because it's just the most easy thing. I don't want to use anything fancy, but I started using this G pen, and I like it because it's just more efficient in the way that I don't have to buy as many pens, because man, microns can really add up. I've seen some 4-packs of microns being like $10, and I'm like, what the? I know the barrier of entry to actually get a G pen with, like getting the holder, the G pen, the ink, a little ink bottle to hold the ink from the big ink bottle. Like the barrier of entry to that is definitely more than $10. considering, you know, you getting microns or this. But once you actually get this, it definitely saves you money in the long run if you know you're going to be a traditional artist for a little while. But you know, it's something that I had, and I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to get it now if didn't have it, because I'm pretty satisfied with inking digitally, and guess what? Costs no money, except for the barrier of entry to that is also much higher than this. But you can also practice a lot more without worrying about it running out or you messing up an illustration. It's a whole digital versus traditional topic on its own for sure. Because, I mean, one other thing I have to say is, man, these blackouts would go so much faster doing it digitally. I mean, it's just like, bam, bucket tool. And that's one of the things I really like about working digitally when it comes to inking, because this saves a lot of time when you're doing manga pages and you have a bunch of blackouts per page. It saves a whole lot of time. I feel like in this age right now, with how software and stuff has really caught up, digital work just doesn't look as digital as it used to, you know? You can get it to look very traditional. But maybe I'll actually do a black and white ink video digitally and see what you guys think of the difference between my traditional and my digital inks are. It might be something fun, who knows. But in any case, if you guys want to help support my artists, help support what I do in this channel, you guys can check me out on my Patreon, link in the description for that. And I'd like to take this time to thank all my current Patreons. You guys are the best pencil shinobis there are and help me be able to do what I do on this channel. But I would like to give a special thanks to my Chunin and Jonin tier Patreons: Satoshi, Alpha Dog Studios, Benjamin T, Jeffrey Riddle, Yulia Namikaze, Wear My Crown, Daniel Hillier, Maricuzio, JT, Aaron McQuiston, Slow Days, Aaliyah Williams, Ryan, Johnny Boy Draws, Liquor, Weeb Ninja, Leo McIntyre, Joe, Daniel Hutchinson, Urgin, David DeBoer, Jaden Syria, Fabsy, Lost Illustrator, and Paul Hrubeck. Unscribbling. That's a new one, and it's very cheesy. Probably not gonna do that one again. But in any case, if you guys like this video, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you're new to the channel, like what you see, please subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notified when each video comes out. And like always, guys, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.